2 million people, and I'm talking about the SME sector in Kenya. Unfortunately, it is one of the hardest hit by COVID-19, and the question is, how does this critical sector get out of the mess, COVID mess, and what is the future for SME sector in Kenya? Good morning, this is SBS Check. We are live from Broadcasting House. O'Brien Kimani is my name, and today we have a guest in the house who will be helping us understand this uncharted territory that we are going into of post-COVID-19 pandemic and what the future portends for our SMEs. At O'Brien Kimani is my Twitter handle, at Wanjohi JB, and of course at KBC Channel 1. Would want to interact with you, and of course if you are an SME, get through to us and help us understand how are you wading through these murky waters of COVID-19. A quick look at the reporter's diary is up next, and then thereafter we'll continue. Well, we're still working on following up on today. Includes, an initiative to try and fast-track the uptake of clean cooking in rural communities. Remember, dirty cooking, or what we call dirty fuel cooking, is a major contributor to various illnesses like TB and so much. And we have seen a concerted effort by government agencies to try and cut down on the use of biomass. And the question is, where are we? That's a story that we are following up. Again, there is the collaboration between the Postal Corporation of Kenya and the Department of Immigration, whereby they want to fast-track the rollout of digital passports. We'll be following up to find out where exactly they are and what they are doing with these collaboration. And as I told you, in the studio, we want to focus on the future of SMEs, the current status of SMEs, and of course, the future of SMEs following such a serious disruption that has been caused by coronavirus pandemic. Not just here in Kenya, but around the world. We are discussing this with Job Wanjohi. He's the head of policy and research at Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Thank you very much indeed, Wanjohi, for finding time to be with us here.
Thank you.
First of all, take us through, when you look at the SMEs environment in this country, pre-COVID and during the era of COVID, what conclusions do you make?
One thing is that pre-COVID, SMEs were struggling. During COVID, they have struggled more. Mm-hmm. It's just a question of hoping that they can become resilient and sustainable.
Yep.
Try to find different ways of carrying out their operations so that they can remain afloat. That notwithstanding, you realize that SME is the greatest employer in the country. Mm-hmm. And forms the biggest part of our businesses in the country. Accounts for about 80% of the businesses that are operating within the country.
Yep.
So it has such a very important sector that cannot just be wished away because it can lead to serious social crisis, can lead to serious security crisis in the country. So you'll see that before COVID, there are various issues that the SMEs were struggling with. When we're talking about the access to credit, by then we had the capping of the interest rate. Mm-hmm. But immediately it was removed in 2019 or 2020 beginning. We started seeing the outflow of the credit to the SMEs. Yep. Though also there's a challenge to do with what is called the collateral security. Mm-hmm. Rather than funding an idea, you have to have that collateral security in the logbook. You must deposit a certain percentage to the bank before you're able to access some funds. Mm-hmm. Another challenge was to do with the market access. You find that accessing the market through the government procurement processes by then was starting at around 17% compliance level against our wish of 40%. So it's showing that even before then, they were struggling as far as the market access is concerned. And the third one was the governance issues. And without putting the governance issues the right way, you realize that SMEs also they struggle. Sometimes you find they are a one-man show. Though you have also to look at different definitions of SMEs from the government. We're talking about the 10 employees, 5 employees and whatnot. Yep. And when you're talking about the capital-intensive SMEs, like now in the manufacturing sector, that you see that somehow you have to have more people so that the operations can go on, because you cannot be able to carry out the operations alone. So all these pre-COVID were struggling because of such factors, and these are things that we have talked about for the longest. During COVID, this was aggravated because even the financial lenders shied off from lending further because of the default rate of the loans. Talk of the market, you find that the value chains and the supply chains were disrupted. Talk of the governance, because of the cash flow constraints, because of the layoff of allowing of the workers. When you're talking about the operational capacity had reduced, because also the sales had reduced. We'll talk about, so all these, once it has reduced, it aggravated the situation. But one thing we have noted is that as a business community or as a country, we are very resilient. We know how to repurpose ourselves, repurpose our energies, to repurpose our production lines, so that if at all today that an SME has been making clothes, you could see that they jumped very fast into the production of like now the masks. And this has seen the reduction of the pricing of the mask from about 100 shillings 15 months ago to today, when you can get it even at 5 shillings. That's what I'm saying, that we are very resilient as a community. We are very resilient as a citizenry. And I think this is a spirit that we should carry forward. And this is the hope that we should also have when we are operating under the new normal. COVID is not going anytime soon. So it's a question of looking at how the business is going to remain sustainable and afloat going forward.
You see, and you're right, you're talking about the SMEs, being the lifeblood of the Kenya's economy, employing more than 80% of the total workforce in this country. How comes, banks are so risk-averse to lending to SMEs, bearing in mind that, they are the future of this economy?
I would say that in the country we have commercial banks forming part of about 95% of the banking sector. And then probably 5% is development banks. Development banks are not risk-averse. But commercial banks have to remain risk-averse because they are profit-oriented. So as such, you find that they have to walk with you the journey to ensure that they are not likely to lose along the way. They are going to get back the capital that was invested together with the interest. And I think that forms the basis of why we have risk-averse banking sector. As opposed to when we can have development banks. And development banks is like now one of the scheme that government is coming up with when we're talking about the guarantee scheme that was introduced last year. And we talked of having 3 billion put into it. The regulations today are at the national treasury level, and looking at how now that one, because the government is the one to provide collateral security as what we are calling the guarantee scheme, such that they can guarantee you in case of future risks that are coming from a public-private partnership together with the banking sector. So they are likely to remain so going forward, but it's a question of having innovative ways that would help us to get the finances being pumped into the SMEs.
And, when the Central Bank of Kenya announced that they were launching the credit guarantee scheme sometimes in June last year. Now we're talking about 12 months down the line. Nothing much has happened. I know the regulations are still being relooked into. This credit guarantee scheme was supposed to help SMEs during that very critical time of need when COVID was really ravaging the economy, and a lot of SMEs, were going through serious difficulties. But is the credit guarantee scheme a noble idea at this time?
I would say that is a noble idea. Is only that the policy space, you find that the implementation of a policy, before even you get to what is called monitoring, evaluation and learning of a policy, takes about 18 months because we are talking of trying to govern 50 million people who are interested with such a guarantee scheme. So you must try to do as much as public participation as possible. But also remember the government has been struggling as far as the revenues are concerned. So the allocation of the 3 billion also could have been a challenge. And the 3 billion allocation is just tip of the iceberg. It's Miaga. We would look at the rate of probably 10% of the GDP. And the GDP, if it is at a 10 trillion, and then that means that the 10%, we're talking of a billion. A trillion shillings of a guarantee scheme, so that we can be able to guarantee as many SMEs as possible, because we're talking of 80% of the business sector being formed by the SMEs. So it's a noble idea. The challenge is if it was at the inception stage, when it was announced, it had not been looked at for about 2 or 3 years before. You'll find that the formalization or putting it into place so that it can operate effectively is likely to delay. But what we can ask the government, because the guarantee scheme was supposed to help the SMEs during the COVID, why can't we then try to fast track?
There was also a proposal, you know, to set up a stabilization fund, an SME stabilization fund, and nothing much has been heard about these, which was supposed also to help de-risk the question of access to collateral by SMEs. Do you think we are lagging when it comes to, you know, the implementation of such policy?
I would say that as a country, we have an avalanche of policy documents. But when it gets now to implementation, becomes a bit challenging. And that's why, like Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we have come up with a policy that is trying to look at how can we monitor what we have proposed to the government more and more, rather than every day trying to propose them new ideas. Because a policy is adopted, or a policy is formed, is adopted, it gets now into the implementation, but before you realize, it's gone and forgotten. So the stabilization fund was a very good idea, but also you find that just like the guarantee scheme is something that is lagging behind. It's just a question of the government now looking at these as a priority for the SMEs, so that now they can be able to access the credit as much as possible, and ensuring that is on the top of the priorities.
You know, as a Kenya Association of Manufacturers, I mean, when you look at the SMEs landscape as currently constituted, of course, there has been so many challenges, you know, from COVID-19 to access to credit, you know, to disruption by innovations and so much. Is it in a better position than it were like 5 years ago?
The SME at the moment, I would say that there are various policies that the government has been trying to come up with every day. For instance, we have been trying to improve what is called the session paper of 2005 into the SME policy of 2020. And this is a paper that we are launching together with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Enterprise Development. The SME sector, I would say that up to 2019, we have seen an improvement. Our rate note also, they were affected by the capping of the interest rate. That the credit was not going their way. Comparing between 2015 and today, again, they have been affected by COVID pandemic. But if it was status quo, without being disrupted by the interest rate capping, without being disrupted again by COVID-19 in the year 2020 and also in the year 2021, SME could have been better. If you look at the statistics that are coming up as far as employment is concerned, we have said that SME is the one that employs most of the Kenyans. But if you look at the statistics from KNBS, they are showing that the numbers of informal employment that were there in 2019 have been wiped off. Remember, they were talking of about 1.7 million jobs that have been lost. So even as far as jobs are concerned, we could be even where we were in 2015. But now what we are counting on is our resilience, is our sustainability, is our spirit to be able to go forward. Rather than try to compare the two, because when you try to do that, we are operating in a more challenging environment than it was in 2015.
And you're right. I mean, the statistics are saying that almost 2 million people, you know, have been rendered jobless, and especially most of them in the informal sector. And this is where SMEs thrive. what do we need to do? I mean, first of all, to return these jobs, and number two, to ensure there is accelerated growth in the SME sector.
There are various measures that need to be taken so that we can see this is happening. And I will I will first of all bring out the first three pre-COVID policy measures that we are prescribing to the government. That we need to see the market access in the public sector, in the private sector, and also at the regional level, because you can see there are bilateral negotiations that are happening every day between United Republic of Tanzania and Kenya. Talk about Uganda and Kenya, so that we can ensure that there is market access as much as possible. When you look at the access to credit, which we have just talked about, it's something that needs to be looked into by fast-tracking the policies that the government has indicated that it's going to bring on board, so that it can help the SMEs and other governance issues. But on top of that, there are other raft of measures that need to be taken. For instance, we need to see the competitiveness and level playing field being improved in the country. We have seen the rate of illicit trade in the country increasing during this period, and partly is because of some of the policies the government is coming up with. For instance, now we're talking about the excise duty on the cigarette, the excise duty on beer. All these has compounded the problem. Instead of those manufacturers who are in the country benefiting, you find that now there is illegal inflow that is coming from Uganda, that is coming from our bordering countries, which don't have that excise duty. So we want to see a level playing field. Competitiveness being improved for some of these SMEs. When you're talking about we've talked about the market access. You look at the sustainability of the policies. Talk about the institutional sustainability. For instance, if I would look at these in line with the Finance Bill 2021 that is being discussed, and this morning we are meeting the Parliamentary Committee on Finances and Budget, there are various policies that are prescribed there that we are opposed to, because they are likely to hurt the SMEs and also the large manufacturers. If you look at the bread is going to attract the VAT at 16%. So you can now try to imagine the effect that is going to be on the manufacturer, who is an SME, and also to the retailer and also to the end consumer. A loaf of bread that goes at 50 shillings is likely now to go to 58 shillings. So you can see probably there will be a reduction of the same, and guys are going to move to the traditional, which is good also, but they're going likely to move to what is non-vatable, or what can supplement what they otherwise take. If you look at the medicines, also they're moving at 16% from exempt status. If at all they attract again the 16%, and a piece of medicine is going for 100 shillings, it's going to move to 116 shillings. So that's an increment by 16 shillings. So that means if we are operating within a basket of 200 shillings as what one wants to spend in a day as a household, you see that is likely to get affected. So we are asking for the reversion of those proposals that are in the Finance Bill 2021, so that we can see the sustainability of the SMEs and also the country in general. When we're talking about the sugar confectionaries, or even the white chocolate, these are things that are mostly consumed by the kids. That means we are even moving into an area that we are likely even to tax the kids at the expense also of our SMEs, who normally make some of these candies. They make some of these sweets and whatnot. Sweets a kg is going to attract 20 shillings extra as an excise duty. When we talk about the white chocolate, it's going to attract 200 shillings per kg. So when you look at all these are some of the proposals that you're telling the government, please stop today. Because we try to implement them, they're not only hurting the SMEs who are in operation, but also they're going to hurt the common mwananchi in general. And
the question is this, I mean, all these proposals, that we have seen, and they have caused a lot of, public outcry, and you have enumerated some of them. And we know that the budget-making process, is supposed to be consultative, is supposed to be collaborative, between various state agencies as well as the private sector. And I know at some point the inputs of manufacturers, like the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, kept saying so much, there were deliberations, that were held between KM, KEPSA, and other industry players together with the National Treasury, to try and come up with a position that will not hurt, manufacturers, that will not hurt, SMEs and so much. How then did we end up with the proposals that you, as KAM, feel that they are likely to hurt manufacturers and SMEs more?
I would say that the public participation happens. But the challenge that comes with the public participation is that constitutionally, we have not seen the separation of power between the various arms of government working effectively. When we can talk of the executive being independent from the parliament, and the parliament being independent from the judiciary. We have seen the power, these independent arms of government exercising their power now and then. But we feel sometimes the executive, yes, it wants to collect as much revenues as possible. But when it gets now to the parliament, whereby WAJICO is represented by members of parliament and the Senate, somehow it's felt like the process gets hijacked. And that's where I would say that that's the arm that represents WAJICO most prominently, because they were voted by WAJICO, and they should listen to the voice of WAJICO as far as some of these proposals that are coming in the Finance Bill 2021 is concerned. So I'll say that public participation happens, but there's some areas that are really wanting as far as the separation of power between the three arms of government is concerned.
And have you tried to engage the final authority on the budget making process, which is the National Parliament, which is the National Assembly?
That's what I talked about the meeting that we had this morning with the Parliamentary Committee on Finance and Budget. So that some of these proposals that are hurting WAJICO, some of these proposals that are hurting the manufacturers can get addressed. And I've just mentioned about 4 or 5 of them. It's a 28-page document looking at various proposals that need to be reversed in that document. There is even another one that is called expense, it's called EDITBA, looking at how we are going to move to 30% instead of a ratio that had been established before. And 30%, that means 30% interest is not going to be deducted in the books of account. But before, we were getting to 100%. If there's 70% that is on top, then it's going to be shouldered by the manufacturers. Again, this is going to affect the manufacturers and the consumers of the end product going forward. So I would say that that we have various other measures that are in that finance bill that need to be looked into more and more going forward.
What do you expect to see, at the end of the day, once all these deliberations, have been put into consideration?
I think there's this push and pull situation between the private sector, the government, and also the citizen in general, because all of us, we have different interests that you're pushing for. One thing we know is that the government, yes, has to correct revenues at the end of the day. But again, they have to ensure that there is prudence in the utilization of those revenues, and also there is proper utilization in the right programs, in the right expenses, so that once you do these, you'll not be having every day some appetite to increase the taxes, to increase the excise duty, to increase the custom duties and whatnot. So that's one part. The government has its own interest. You look at WAJICO. WAJICO also wants to see how the price of goods can be reduced. And one measure to reduce the price of goods is looking at the fiscal policy measures. We're talking about now the taxation, looking at the expenditure from the government. If it is reduced, the government is not likely to have appetite to collect more revenues. It's not likely now, again, to increase the taxes. And this, again, is not going to hurt WAJICO. When we get now to the private sector, we are profit-oriented. So we have to try as much as possible to have a balance between giving CISA, or giving government what is due to government, ensuring that to WAJICO, we are giving WAJICO competitive prices on the goods that you're selling to them, and ensuring that there is sustainability and resilience. There is going forward. There is going concern for the private sector. So it's a mix that need to be looked at. It's an ecosystem.
It's a cocktail of issues, actually.
Yes.
Last year, we saw the government, rolling out 54 billion shillings stimulus package, which was essentially supposed to go towards, providing financial support to youth-oriented institutions. Some of them, went into school desk making projects. Others went into the tourism industry. But when you look at really the impact of this stimulus package, I mean, it has not been significant. What would you attribute this to?
Indeed, one of the initiatives that we are intended to carry out together with KPMG in the month of September is to do a 1 year on survey on, or do monitoring and evaluation, monitoring, evaluation and learning on the economic stimulus package that was issued by the government around July last year. Yes, there's some initiatives that were taken up when we're talking about, like now the furniture and timber sector, whereby there was production of the desks that you're talking about, and various other initiatives like now employment of the youths in doing a few activities here and there, which sometimes I feel like they're not sustainable. Impact, not necessarily that it has been felt on the ground. When we're talking about the procurement from the government side of some of the goods that have been put in that economic stimulus package, you find again we are being hurt by what is called the prompt payment. You supply to the government and you are not likely to be paid at the right time your dues. So you find again is an ecosystem that is not promoting the right business environment in the country. So we will be carrying out the 1 year on monitoring and evaluation of the economic stimulus package, together with a few other documents that we have come up with at the CAM level, so that we can really get tangibly with statistics what is the effect of these, so that we can go back to the government and tell them your performance has been at 50%. and we want to see it being pushed to 90%. These are the next steps that you're supposed to take, so that we see that economic stimulus package benefiting all the wananchis.
And you're talking about delays in payment to suppliers, and we know the pending bills are running into billions of shillings, and there has been various attempts by the government to try and clear this backlog. But the most affected are the counties, and well put, I mean, the most affected are young people, yes. SMEs, who supply to the devolved units. How best do we fast track these, and how are they choking, the lifeline of SMEs?
I would say that is it's something that is really affecting the SME sector big time, because you find, as we were seeing that finances is a problem to most of the SMEs. Mm-hmm. So the little that they have, or even the little that they get from the credit facilities, once it is pumped into production, and then it is it's supplied to the government, and then the payment comes after a year or two, and probably you have taken a loan, and this loan has some interest, you find that now there is a net off between the interest that you pay to the bank after 2 years and the profits that you get out of that supply. And then you find it's a zero-sum game. No profits, no sustainability, you are unable to move forward. As a solution, I'm looking at how the government can be committed by saying that if we are owing the private sector 100 billion or 150 billion, why can't we float a board? And this board specifically, because we have been floating board for infrastructure development, why can't we then float a board so that this time we dedicate it to the private sector? We go through all the audits, ensure that all the books are okay as far as the procurement is concerned, and the payments are due. If at all there's some interest that the government is supposed to pay because of the delay, then all that is imputed into the payment, and subsequently then all that is paid. What that's likely to happen, you see more cash flow in the economy. You see multiplier effect of the economic activities, whereby one has been producing 1 item per day, they can move in production of 3 items because the market is there. China is flocking its goods here. Yeah. India is flocking its goods here. So it's just a question of ensuring that as far as the prompt payment by the government is concerned, sometimes even by the private sector is concerned, it is fast-tracked, so that by doing so, we don't incur costs on interest, we don't incur costs on the delay, because time is of essence as far as payments are concerned. Yeah.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're discussing the future of SMEs in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. Definitely, you are aware that their contribution to the country's employment is about 80%. And the most unfortunate thing is that they are the worst affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And the question is, what interventionary measures do we put in place as a nation to try and jumpstart the SME sector in this country? This is a conversation we are having on BizCheck, and we are in the good company of Job Wanjohi. He's the head of policy and research at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. So you're in good hands. He knows a thing or two about the SME sector. He has interacted with them, and he's very passionate about young people in business. You're talking about an infrastructure bond, and this requires, some level of sophistication when it comes to investment. It requires people who understand the macroeconomics of a country. And when you look at the majority of our SMEs, they do not fall into this category. How then would you ensure that they are not left out of the cookie train?
Now, the bond is not the SMEs that are going to float it.
Mm-hmm. No, well, I understand it's government, definitely.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Once the government floats the bond, they're floating it specifically for the payment of the pending for the pending payments. And if it is entitled to float bond for infrastructure development, it should also feel entitled to float bond to clear the outstanding bills, because these outstanding bills have really shocked the private sector. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel too down when I talk with some of these entrepreneurs, and someone is telling you that I'm almost closing shop. I'm almost closing my production line. Not because I don't want to operate, but because I'm cash constrained. I've taken overdraft from the bank. But because I'm not being paid from the private sector, I'm not being paid from the government, then I'm being locked out of the market because of non-payment. So I would say that it is possible that the government can afford this bond so that it can save the private sector, and especially the SMEs, from this mess that they are in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But one of the challenges that even these SMEs are having, and this has to do more with the county governments because of the transitions that has been there. After every 5 years, a new administration will come into power at the county levels. And I know, for example, of an investor who was given a contract by one of the county governments to deal with some roads in the county.
Yes. And
unfortunately or fortunately, wherever you stand, the contract was ongoing when the elections were held, and the previous administration never came back into the office. And he's been having challenges, proving that he needs to be paid by the new administration that came into the office. Yeah. The contract was first of all stopped midway. He had bills he had loans that he was supposed to service, and this has completely grounded his operations.
Yes.
So even if you are to float an infrastructure bond, a debt bond, how then are you going to ensure that everybody who is affected, participate in this bond?
Abroad from where I sit, sometimes I feel that it's unfortunate that we have personalized our offices rather than institutionalized our offices. Mm-hmm. Institutionalization means that it doesn't matter who occupies the office next.
Yep.
You'll be paid your money, because it is the office that is paying you the money. It's not the individuals. And that's where now we lose it completely. It's very unfortunate that you find guys are quite averse when it comes to electioneering periods. They're not likely to cooperate with the government as far as the procurement is concerned. Yep. Because they don't know which administration or which regime is going to take over power, whether it's one that is going to pay them or whether it's one that is not going to pay them. So I would say that one major step that we need to take as a country is ensuring that we are institutionalizing our processes. Once we institutionalize our processes, we will not worry about who is going to occupy that office next. And subsequently, you see the payments are going to be done objectively to every person. Mm-hmm. There was a measure that had been taken a while back, I think last year, but one by the National Treasury, whereby they were tracking the bills, pending bills from the county government. So that once they establish that these are the pending bills, and then they are audited enough and they the books are approved, the money is pumped to them. One of the requirement was, before we make the next payment to you so that we pay the suppliers, you'll have to tell us the percentage reduction of the pending bills or the debts that are owed to the private sector, how they stand. Subsequently, that was an indicator whether more money should be pumped to you or whether more money should not be pumped to you as a county government. And I think that's some of the innovative ways that we need to bring into play so that we can ensure that each and every player within the economy is treated fairly.
The other question that comes into mind is, you know, even before COVID, the SMEs, you know, are going through very serious challenges, you know, and you enumerated some of them. Now here we are with the COVID, massive layoffs, you know, financial challenges, bleak export numbers. How do they overcome these challenges?
One of the thing that we need to ensure is that we have cleaned up our supply and value chains completely, and they are working effectively. And that's a discussion that we have been having with the government for the last 15 months. There's what we call the inbound process, because we have now to analyze the whole production process, the whole supply process, so that you can ensure that whatever is coming from the production centers for the SMEs and also for the large manufacturers is competitive enough such it can sell by itself in the market. So one of the things that we've been looking at is the inbound processes. How are we operating at the port? How are we operating when you're bringing our goods through the standard gauge railway or SGR, or when you're bringing by road? Ensuring that there is effectiveness and there's cost reduction around those areas. O'Brien, if your goods today are stuck at the port for more than 4 days without being cleared, you are expected to pay some demurrage and some storage cost. But if you're able to clear within those 4 days, and this is now the effectiveness that can only come from the government, not from the private sector. You see that now you're not likely to pay those penalties in terms of demurrage and the storage cost. When you're talking about the last mile, the last mile is when you're moving your goods, like now from SGL to the production point. You have also to ensure that around that area it's competitive enough, so that when you're moving your goods to around 4 miles or 5 miles for a 20-foot container, TU, you are not overcharged 25,000 or 30,000. You get a competitive price that is going to help you govern your end price for these products. When you get now to the inbound competitiveness, when you're talking about the cost of electricity, and this is something that we have really talked about, and we're looking at how it can be reduced. The cost of electricity today is 16 cents US per kilowatt per hour in Kenya. Our ambition is to get to 9 cents USD per kilowatt per hour. But you can see that is going to be a journey. Again, this is meant to infuse competitiveness in the private sector. When you're talking about like now the labor cost also, ensuring that it is competitive enough. And we are happy that the government was able to retain some incentives for anybody who is earning less than 24,000. They are in non-taxation bracket. When again we go to the outbound process, looking at the count fees and charges, because you have to move your goods from your production facilities in Kisumu to Migori, from Nairobi to Nyeri, from Mombasa to Mandera and whatnot. There are various county fees and charges that are really impeding effectiveness and competitiveness of the private sector. All that compounds into either you are competitive enough to sell your goods in the market, or you're not competitive at all. And that, again, is what now will translate you to your ability to be able to export, to your ability to be able to offload your goods into the local market. I'm happy that what we are producing today, 80% is offloaded into the local market. But I would say that we can get to more than that, because it is 80 of what we produce. Probably what we produce at the moment is worth about 700 billion Kenya shillings. We can be able to expand because of competitiveness. From that, probably to 1.5 trillion worth of manufactured goods in the country, and this again will eat into what is imported, and this is under what we call the import substitution strategy. Through that, we see that more jobs are going to be created, more investments are likely to come to the economy, and many other factors which are positive.
You know, one of the silver linings of the COVID-19 pandemic is the fact that you know, the issue of innovation, the issue of digitization is now likely to be accelerated. From where you see it, do you realize, or do you see, like, the local SMEs are taking advantage of the digitization movement and innovation?
We have, I think, two segments here. And one is the ongoing SMEs, which are trying to have a hybrid between digitization and also the labor integration. This is more encouraged because of the setup of their facilities, because probably it was capital intensive. What had been set up before requires the interaction between the machine and the human being. So you see there's such a hybrid. But we have seen the nascent and the emerging opportunities or industries coming up, whereby SMEs are choosing full digitization. You can see the alternative bags that we are currently having instead of the plastic bags. Those bags, you find that the machines that are making them, there is minimal interaction between many human beings and the machine itself. Or even when you're talking about the production of apparel in the country, go to some of these EPZ companies that are newly established, that are nascent. You realize that they have digitized even the making of apparel of clothes or clothes, because that is what is that's what is driving their competitiveness. So it's just a question of trying to balance between digitization and the labor or the human capital, because if you look at our country, we are more human, or we are more labor intensive than capital intensive. And looking at digitization is capital intensive, so it's a question of trying to balance the ecosystem and ensure that we are not losing on jobs, but again we are digitizing through the SMEs.
And we've been spending a lot of time here, you know, asking what the government is doing to help and you know, to try and help the SMEs in this sector. And the same question now goes to the private sector, you know, institutions like Kenya Association of Manufacturers, you know, where some of your members, you know, they have tremendous, you know, expertise, having been in operations for decades. What are you doing, you know, as an institution to also help the SMEs, you know, absorb the shocks of COVID?
I'm happy to know that in the same finance bill that we're talking about, that there are some proposals that we feel they're not favoring us. There's one incentive that there's one proposal that we took to the National Treasury when we had the budget hearing at the National Treasury, whereby the large manufacturers can assimilate the graduates from our universities and the TVETs with a few incentives being introduced by the government. And we have seen this was approved in the Finance Bill 2021. What this is likely to happen is that we will have these graduates and the TVET graduates, or university graduates and the TVET graduates, being able to come out of the large manufacturing hub with a skill that is required, such that when they are setting up their SMEs, because not necessarily that you have to be employed or move from attachment or industrial placement into employment, but you can decide the skill that I've gotten from this hub, the skill that I've gotten from this factory, I can transfer it into an SME. Something else that is also happening is support through material credit. You find that large manufacturers are working with small manufacturers, like now in provision of their input into, like now, making furnitures. And then once they have sold those off those furnitures, they pay back the large manufacturers. So there's that integration, business-to-business integration that is happening between the small and the large. So just a question of ensuring that if you're interested in doing this as an association, we are supporting.
And on top of that, well, I know you don't have bankers, you know, as part on your platform, because you are manufacturers.
We have them.
Oh, you have them as KAM?
Yes, we have them.
Okay.
Even the money makers.
Even the money makers themselves. So, if it's true you have them on board,
Yes.
How are you trying to encourage them to extend credit to SMEs? Well, it is good. I mean, to ensure that there are checks and balances. Because you don't want just to splash your money to anybody. But are you talking to them to try and to loosen some of the demands, collateral demands that are placed on SMEs to access credit?
One thing that we are working together with the banks is to ensure that there is formalization process that is happening. That is movement from informal to formal, or what we can call bankability process, such that an SME has the right documents. That means they are transparent. It can be known their inflow and their outflow, how it looks like, their markets, how they look like, and the sustainability of those markets, how they look like. And by doing so, then this is what you present as your collateral security to the bank, by saying that I have in my account, I receive 500,000 cash shillings in a month, and this is likely to help me. And out of these, 150 shillings or 150,000 shillings is profit to my side. So out of these, I am able to get a loan, which I'll be paying at 50,000 per month, because the sustainable market and the books are transparent and open.
Yep.
So one of the things that we've been trying to do together with the banking sector is to promote bankability and formalization of the SMEs, so that they are able to get into the credit bracket. But you find also it becomes a bit hard, because when we become formal, our revenue authorities, now they have an eye on you. So you find sometimes it becomes hard to convince the informal businesses to formalize, because they know that now they're getting into the tax bracket of the government. But I think there is more advantage in formalization rather than to remain informal.
And the issue of collateralization, of credit in this country, I mean, has been discussed for ages, on how banks, can loosen their news around the issue of collateral. And we don't seem to be having a way out of this, because, some of the issues that you have mentioned, a lot of SMEs are afraid of becoming formal, because that is, of course, is going to attract the eyes of regulators, like Kenya Revenue Authority. But how do we ensure that such issues are dealt with and make it comfortable for SMEs, because they cannot be informal forever. At some point, they need to become formal and become big businesses. So how do we ensure that, we make them comfortable even to become formal?
One of the things to ensure that you are walking the SMEs the journey, but not, it's like you're not waiting for them at the gate, for them to enter, and then they are served the same measures that like anybody else, is to ensure that there is a progressive walk with them. And that's the reason why, like now, Kenya Revenue Authority introduced what is called the turnover tax. But now that's different from the minimum tax, because the minimum tax was such a harsh tax for everybody. But the turnover tax is at 1%, of which once you've paid that, I don't think you're expected to contribute anything else. The objective of doing this is to ensure that we are widening, or the government is widening the tax bracket, but again, at the same time, it is encouraging formalization. One thing that I would encourage, so that we can see the issues of collateral and formalization of the private sector, of the SMEs is concerned, is the regulatory overreach. Once you are trying to formalize, you find that you are met by various agencies that come with various revenue demands. This certificate is required, this other certificate is required, and before you are able to acquire these certificates, these are the amounts that you're supposed to pay. And it comes to a huge amount of money. So for us to help the SMEs then to get to that stage, can we have one-stop shop that is established, whereby there is a brochure that is saying that if you want to get into this sector, these are the regulatory requirements that you're supposed to meet. And this is the cost. And I believe the one who is doing this, who is called Mr. Government, will sit down and now understand the reason why the private sector in the SME category, they are complaining because they realize that for you to be able to set up, the cost is high. The time used to meet some of those compliance issues also is high. So we need to see the reduction as far as the regulatory overreach is concerned, so that we can encourage more and more formalization of these SMEs.
And there is an institution in this country called MCEA, whose mandate is to ensure that the well-being of the SMEs in this country is in place, and also ensure that you know, they are facilitated and they are empowered. As a private sector, is there a feeling that MCEA is doing that it ought to do to secure the future of SMEs in this country?
Yeah, Micro and Small Enterprise Authority looks at micro and small, but you see the SME is small and medium enterprise. So you find that the MCEA itself is not likely to look into the medium enterprises issues, and it has been one of our concern when we're talking about the micro and the small enterprises policy of 2020, because it's locking out the medium players. MCEA, yes, a good organization, and we have been working with it. In fact, we had a conversation with the CEO over what is called the Manufacturing Priority Agenda 2021 for Kenya's Association of Manufacturers. One of the challenges they could be facing is the funding by the government for them to be able to carry out their mandate effectively. So we get back to the credits for the SMEs themselves, and the funding from the government, they're being inadequate. And this is a case that is happening to many agencies within the government. You find that their sustainability, if at all they're looking at getting the cash or to get their funding from the National Treasury, sometimes it's quite constrained. So they may be willing to move the next step, but now there is that challenge that they face at the moment, and looking at how probably now we can have a certain percentage commitment of our revenues, of our GDP, be committed to this because of the integral role that institution plays in the country.
Very well.
Or would be able to play in the country. Yeah.
Wanjohi, before I let you go, I mean, I want you to look into your camera. We've been here, you know, talking about big words like collateralization, securitization, formalization, you know, big words here, but I want you to focus on your camera and give tips to struggling SMEs on how to make it to the next step of their SME's life.
One thing that is quite important is to ensure that you are not stuck in what you have been making from the onset, because probably it has lost the taste or is unable to fit in the pocket of cash-constrained society. So repurposing or looking at how you can move into a sector that is working well at the moment is something that I would say that can really help you to remain afloat, remain sustainable at the moment. We've talked about the formalization process, very integral and quite important. Not only looking at how you're going to be affected when you get formalized through the taxation, excise duty, and the rest, but looking at the bigger goal that you're likely to get into, as far as the banks allowing you to get into their banking halls, and you're able to get some credit. Also, something to do with governance, not only having one-man show within that SME, ensuring that there is institutionalization of the SME that is happening, so that through these you have the right expertise within your docket or within the SME that it would help you to move the next step. The other thing I would ask is that let's work together in pushing for the local market, for the regional market, and also even we take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area, take advantage of the Economic Partnership Agreement, take advantage of the FTA that we are negotiating with the United States of America as source of our markets, and this will require the standardization of your products. Thank you.
Well. Invaluable input there from Job Wanjohi. Thank you so very much indeed for finding time to be with us this morning.
Yes.
And of course, giving your tips to the SMEs. I know they're struggling.
Yes.
But Who knows? One or two SMEs may have benefited from your advice.
I agree.
Asante sana for your time.
Thank you.
Let's keep engaging.
Yes.
The future is SMEs.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Job Wanjohi is the head of policy and research at Kenya Association of Manufacturers, joining us this morning. Of course, he is a regular on this program, and his advice has been tested by time and proven to be effective in helping young SMEs to move to their next phase of life, and where they stop being SMEs to become fully fledged institutions. This is BizCheck, where quality discussions are the order of the day. O'Brien Kimani is my name. We are taking a short break, and the next discussion we are having is how SMEs can access credit. Stay right here.
Thank you. Good night.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Mwalimu, you almost gave me a heart attack. Why are you talking? You're confusing us.
Confusing you? How?
I thought I was out of place. Why don't you go back to your bossy mother and ask her for your forgiveness? And pray very hard that she welcome you back, because clearly you are not meant for this class.
Kimani, is this a joke?
Of course, it is not a joke.
You haven't even written your name. Can you go and wait for me in the office?
Mr. Tisha, I have been here for so long, so if you don't mind, I have a pressing matter I needed to handle.
How about I give you all a pressing issue?
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Hello? Tonight, come quick and save us. Hugo and I are at the police station. What?
I'm the kind of man that despises those Gucci women who use love as a knife and stab innocent women in the heart. I'm a champion of justice, coming to the rescue of those in need. You can arrest me and put me in jail, but it has nothing to do with anyone else.
Think I can talk to you in Ching for a
Tell
second?
you what, I'm not the one in charge here. You have to listen to the officers. Listen to the officers, okay?
向前步入怀念。
From Broadcasting House, and of course our discussion this morning has been around the revival of the SME sector and of course boosting their prospect going forward. We've been talking to Job Wanjohi, Head of Policy and Research at KM. Time now to shift our gears, and of course we'll still be discussing the issues around SMEs, but this time around we want to look into the issue of access to credit. It has been a challenge, and when you look at statistics from the Central Bank of Kenya, they will tell you that out of the total credit issued in the year 2020, only 20% went to SMEs. How do we turn tables and ensure that SMEs also get to enjoy the huge loans being offered by commercial banks. Joining us to help us with more insight on this is Peter Masharia. He's the CEO of Jijenge Credit. Thank you very much indeed, Washira, for joining us. I want first of all to hear from you. Central Bank says that there has been a spike in the portfolio of NPLs, non-performing loans, and the figure is around 12.5 to 13% of total issued loans. As a private sector, what has contributed to the rise in NPLs?
Thank you, O'Brien, for inviting me to the studios today. The major reason for the high rise or high increase of the NPL, that is the non-performing loans, is of course the COVID-19, which is now an area that is affecting the whole world. But by and large, from a global perspective, it shows that we've not been we don't plan for disasters, or we don't save for the dry spell. Because if we would have enough savings, we would have been able to navigate and shelf the challenges of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
But the main reason is COVID-19, which is compounded now by lack of planning to save, lack of proper savings, and also another big challenge is the previous challenges that the country was going through, economic challenges. We are still struggling to stabilize in terms of managing our economy and supporting the SMEs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Apart from COVID, and well, it's being appreciated that COVID has presented unprecedented challenge to the business environment, and not only here in Kenya, but globally. Are you convinced that as a country we have managed to deal with this crisis accordingly and as it would be desired, to ensure that number one, SMEs access to credit, and number two, they are capable of repaying?
Well, generally our policymakers have tried to manage and support the SMEs, though not fully. Because if you even walk around, or if you look at the most affected sectors like the tourism sector, the support programs have not been very effective. Because there are those industries or those businesses that have literally closed shop completely.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the ones that are still open are really struggling to make ends meet by paying salaries, even paying rent. But my personal opinion is that the policymakers, the CBK governor and his team, they are trying the best they can to support the economy and the SMEs.
Mm-hmm.
And there are those, if you look at, rather I'm expecting the coming budget, there will be something to support the businesses that have been affected by COVID. So they're able to survive and restore the previous kick, whereby they're operating full throttle,
mm-hmm.
they're employing all their employees, and they're able to generate maximum profits.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
As lenders, this is something that we have seen in the recent past,
mm-hmm.
where newspapers, are inundated with auctioneers, selling property of companies that borrowed, but they are unable to service their loans.
Yes.
I know auction is usually the last resort. Have you tried to double your efforts in trying to engage companies that are in default, to try and give them some grace period and so much to repay their loans?
Yes, as a company, as Jijenge Credit Limited, we, apart from the moratorium that CBK gave, we usually give an additional and longer grace period. Actually, we have customers who've given a grace period of more than 1 year, especially the ones who are in the service industry, tourism sectors, hoteliering. because they were hard hit by this COVID-19. And apart from that, we've done a lot of loan rescheduling, loan repackaging, and readjusting the installments to suit the incomes or the new lower incomes of our customers. But by and large, there's been a lot of support from the lenders, as included, and we are happy with the progress.
How can SMEs improve their bankability, to ease access to loans? And I know that most of our SMEs, because of their informal nature, they're not very good at bookkeeping. And how do you then ensure that they improve on these to improve their credit worthiness?
Well, I know we've been trained to, even the government has been trained to encourage SMEs to have and to keep proper financial records.
Mm-hmm.
As Jijenge Credit, we know that that's a big challenge because most of them have don't have formal or bankable records. And therefore, what we do as an organization, when you're lending to SMEs, if they say they don't have a formal bank statement, we now request them to bring M-Pesa statements.
Mm-hmm. Just a minute, because we want to go to the Postal Corporation of Kenya, where they are launching a collaboration between Postal Corporation of Kenya and the Immigration Services. So let's first of all listen in, and then we'll continue with the discussion from here.
Yeah.
Very much. I want to thank everybody, and may God bless you all. Let me now take this opportunity, if you allow me, to invite the Director General to give his remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kagwe, the Postmaster General and CEO, Postal Corporation of Kenya, Directors of Immigration present, General Managers, Postal Corporation of Kenya, staff from PCK and also staff from Immigration, invited guests, members from the 4th Estate, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today marks another momentous milestone, not just for our two institutions, the Directorate of Immigration Services and Postal Corporation of Kenya, but also for our country, Kenya. It is an opportunity to demonstrate the value we can create when institutions collaborate based on their strategic strengths to improve service delivery to our citizens. The Directorate of Immigration and Postal Corporation of Kenya signed a Memorandum of Understanding on the Thursday, 30th July 2020 for passport delivery through the post office network. The operationalization of passport delivery began in September 2020. The Directorate of Immigration has been undertaking service improvement and process reengineering over the last few years. We have automated our services, and our customers can be able to access all our services online through a number of portals. We have the e-citizen portal for passports, temporary permits, as well as for interstate passes. We have the e-visa portal for visa application. We have the EFNS portal for various foreign national management services such as permits, that is work permits and passes, citizenship services including regaining of Kenyan citizenship for Kenyans who are actually overseas, application for foreigners who want to become permanent residents in Kenya, as well as those who want to become citizens, as well as registration of foreign nationals for issuance of foreign certificates, that is the alien cards. As we launch this partnership today, the two institutions will sign an addendum to the initial MOU that will address countrywide coverage of passport delivery services, as well as the last mile, door-to-door delivery, which has been well enumerated by the CEO, Postal Corporation of Kenya. This is in line with the culture of continuous improvement of service delivery at the Directorate of Immigration. We are very grateful to the Postmaster General and the entire staff of Postal Corporation of Kenya for accepting our request, because it is us who made the initial request, to collaborate, taking note of the various challenges Kenyans were facing, and even more so during this COVID era, with your able strength to be able to deliver passports to the convenience of our customers. Now, what was the rationale for the collaboration between Immigration and the Postal Corporation of Kenya? We all know how households and economies have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. It was necessary for the Directorate to look for innovative ways to reduce congestion in our offices, while at the same time ensure continuity of service delivery to our customers. We did realize that the Postal Corporation of Kenya offers enormous capacity and opportunity with its vast post office network that covers all the 47 counties in the country. This indeed endeared us to collaborate with the Postal Corporation of Kenya for passport delivery services. Through this partnership, we will reduce the number of trips that passport applicants make to immigration offices to a single visit for submission of the applications as well as for the taking of their biometrics. Our customers can now continue running their businesses and leave the burden of delivery of passports to the experienced government agency, which is the Postal Corporation of Kenya. Let me now address the design of the passport delivery system. The Directorate has been able to put in place a robust communication system that alerts passport applicants when their passports are ready for delivery. Applicants receive an SMS with instructions and a link to access the postal passport delivery portal, that is passport.posta.co.ke. It is through this link that you get a self-service portal that allows you to input your tracking number, personal details, delivery location, as well as pay the minimum delivery fee applicable. Payments are made through mobile money providers such as M-Pesa and Airtel Money. Since the operationalization of this partnership in September 2020, the Directorate has been able to dispatch, and I'll quote the current figure, which is about now 156,000 passports for onward delivery to the applicants up to a few days ago. These people I'm talking about are people who are working in the various sectors of our economy. They're also business persons, school-going children, sportsmen, who now have been spared the time and cost of traveling long distances to visit our offices just to pick a passport. Because even if you compute the costs which now the Postal Corporation is charging, you can't compare it with the amount of fare you are going to pay into a matatu, and also the time you are spending, and also some of the risks you are going to go through, particularly during this COVID era. The current passport delivery system is initiated normally by immigration. The Immigration Directorate sends notification messages when passports are ready directly to the applicants through their mobile phones. So here it is very important when you are making your application to ensure that you give us your right mobile, which we can be able to contact you. Because it is these mobile numbers which you use to create the eCitizen account. This number is normally printed on the passport payment receipt downloaded from the eCitizen. We strongly urge passport applicants to confirm their eCitizen contact details, that is telephone numbers and email addresses, because we do use both modes of communication, as this can cause them to miss out on the notifications, because this is really very critical. Passport applicants also can be able to contact us on the following numbers, because at immigration also we have dedicated a call center where we can be easily accessed by any citizen or any foreigner who wants our services. And our number, which I just want to give you, and I'll repeat it again, is +254 110.
That is the Director, or the Director General of the Directorate of Immigration Services. That is the launch of the last mile passport delivery services to citizens. This is a collaboration between the Postal Corporation of Kenya and the Directorate of Immigration Services. And so far, according to the Postal Corporation of Kenya, they have managed to deliver around more than 150,000 passports through their extensive network of post office centers. We'll keep tabs on what exactly is happening there, and we'll keep you posted in our subsequent bulletin. Back now to the studios, where we're discussing, access to credit for SMEs, bearing in mind that because of COVID-19 scourge, and their informal nature. SMEs have been really hammered, and the question that we are focusing on today is how to make SMEs more bankable and how to increase their bankability level. We are discussing this with Peter Macharia. He's the CEO of Jinjenge Credit. Thank you, Macharia. Before we end for that break, the question that we were asking ourselves is, how do we structure our SMEs to ensure that they become attractive to lenders and they formalize their informal processes?
Thank you once again. One of the main ways that we as an organization are doing to make it easy for SMEs to get credit from us is we are trying to lower the requirements. Instead of telling them to bring 6 months bank statements, we are now requesting them to bring M-Pesa statements. Why? This is because M-Pesa is a universally accepted mode of payment, and most micro organizations or small organizations embrace M-Pesa as their mode of payment. And if you can remember, sometime last year when COVID came on board, one of the modes of payment that was zero-rated and encouraged was payment via M-Pesa. So therefore, as an organization and a person in credit and lending, we're encouraging small businesses to channel all their payments and payables through M-Pesa statements.
Or through, mobile platforms,
exactly,
as it were, or online transactions.
Yes.
But when you remember that, I mean, the mobile network coverage in this country is, stands more than 100%. And mobile platform actually, eclipsing the conventional banking methods. Are you convinced that SMEs are taking up this challenge of moving their transactions, to mobile platforms?
Yes. Most of SMEs are doing that. From our statistics or the records we have, 95% or more than 95% of SMEs are embracing that change. And it's also an onus and our responsibility to also encourage them to embrace mobile platforms so that it's safer, it enhances their record keeping, and it enables them to be bankable and to be appreciated by many lenders.
And then the other question that comes into mind is, the cost of credit in this country. And this has been, an ongoing discussion, how do we lower the cost of credit in this country? And when you consider that, banks will give loans, at a rate of between 16 and 18%, when you factor in various payments. Is this really the best that we can offer our SMEs, or there is a way we can go down to, let's say, maybe say 10%, 12%?
Well, currently the CBK percentage lending base rate is 7%. And I would like to appreciate the governor for maintaining that rate, because I think from the statistics and the information that and the data that they have, that is currently the best rate that they can that they can maintain with the current prevailing economic challenges, because there are so many factors to be looked at, which I don't want to delve into. And at this point, I would like to appreciate the opportunity I'm usually given by CBK to participate in the preparation of those rates every month. And if you look at within the Africa region, those are the going rates, because if you look at some Western countries, the rates are slightly higher. But compared to the Kenyan market, those rates are quite fair.
Are you talking about West Africa?
Western African nations.
Yep.
Their rates are slightly higher. But I know and I believe that with the efforts that the policymakers are putting in place, that rate will gradually go down. It's only that COVID came and it distorted the market dynamics. Yes.
And when you look at the banking supervisory report released by the Central Bank of Kenya, they're saying that the level of non-performing loans among SMEs was especially higher in tourism, real estate and construction sectors. And this can be well understood because, for example, the tourism sector was completely hammered by the COVID-19 pandemic. When you look at the real estate sector, there was a pause in buying and construction of new units. Everybody was in a wait-and-see mode. So what interventionary measures as lenders are you putting in place to ameliorate the suffering of SMEs?
Well, it's true the three major sectors that were affected by COVID are tourism, real estate, and also some areas of transport. However, given time, although I'm looking at next year, which might be an election year, and the cycle, as we know, repeats itself, whereby SMEs are usually negatively affected by politics and the electioneering period. Therefore, it might the effects of COVID combined with the electioneering period next year might extend up to early 2023. That's when we might expect some symbol of stability. And therefore, the best mode of handling that period is to ensure that most organizations survive. I would like to say what Jack Ma said, Jack Ma from China, that during COVID,
the founder of Alibaba.
Yes, you don't make profits, you just need to survive. So that's my advice too for most SMEs and corporates and businesses. Let's survive between now, next year, but after next year we start making profits.
Very well. Yeah. Washira, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning and help us understand how we can deal with the issue of a credit to SMEs, because now we have to go to Karen, where the Kenya Defence University graduation is underway, and now we want to take you to that event. Otherwise, thank you for your time. We'll see you again next week. Bye for now.
Since then, the college has made great. And as we graduate another batch of 56 officers today, we mark a total of 1,463 officers who have graduated from this college, 338 of whom are officers from our allied African countries. This is therefore an important day for the graduates and the college fraternity as a whole. And I thank you all for getting the time out of your schedule to celebrate with us. Today's graduation ceremony will be in 4 segments as follows.